Hi, I'm Sonia, the girl with the answers to your most important Epstein questions. Back again to fill in the gaps left every day and every week when the pros do the reporting. What you're going to get from me and not the others, maybe ever, is full transparency. The facts, as originally recorded and investigated. No reductions. That's right. The complete truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. So help you and help them, God, because I am about to give it raw. Welcome to the unredacted truth behind the Epstein files. And if you or anyone you know is left confused after the week's reporting, or just don't want to wait for the truth, like, subscribe, and share. So you can always head to the unredacted truth, where we fill in the missing pieces.
Statue of Donald Trump and Jeffrey Epstein holding hands is causing outrage in Washington, D.C.
Representative, he's not saying that what Epstein did is a hoax. It's a terrible, unspeakable evil. He believes that himself. When he first heard the rumor, he kicked him out of Mar-a-Lago. He was an FBI informant.
They're here with a singular purpose, to reveal every name, every abuser, every
Bitch, nowhere, I look better with no hair, ain't no sign I can't smoke here, yeah. Give me the chance and I'll go there. Bitch, I said what I said. I'd rather be famous instead. I let all that get to my head. I don't care, I paint the town red. Bitch, I said what I said.
Well, we definitely received substantial evidence that he was involved in trafficking young women and children to the Virgin Islands.
In this week's Epstein document dump is the civil enforcement lawsuit against the Epstein Estate brought by the U.S. Virgin Islands. So get ready. Grab those pens, grab your papers, sharpen those pencils, because we are about to publicly shame. Now, in the previous video I did, USVI government corruption exposed, Jane Doe's 1 to 4 accused senators, Carlton Doe and Celestina White, plus the then Attorney General Vincent Frazier, among others, in aiding and abetting Epstein to be able to freely traffic both minors and young girls from the U.S. to the Virgin Islands. Now, today, we hear more of that investigation. Thanks to Denise George, before she was terminated, possibly for getting too close to the big dogs. And if you haven't had a chance to watch that video, I highly recommend you go back and catch up. There's so much to expose. You don't want to miss a thing, and it can get confusing.
For a very long period of time through our airport, through his private jet. And then he would, by helicopter or sometimes boat, would then transport them over to Little St. James. And that's where he has his complex where he lives, which is his official residence as well. And that these young girls and women were subject to sexual assault, sexual exploitation, through coercion, false imprisonment, where the passports at some points were taken away. The actions were just reprehensible. And it was quite a number of women, and we found.
Now to the docket. This week's defendants include, but are not limited to, in their capacities as executors of the Jeffrey Epstein Estate and administrators of the 1953 Trust, we have two proud fathers of daughters, Daren Indyke and Richard D. Kahn. than the Epstein Enterprise, which is nowhere close to all of them. But in this case, we are looking at the 1953 Trust, Plan D LLC, Great St. Jim LLC, Nautilus Inc., Hyperion Air, Poplar Inc., and Southern Trust Company. But before we begin to uncover these sins, let's look at the fate of those like Denise George who dare to stand on the side of justice or may know a little too much.
Fired Virgin Islands Attorney General Denise George, who was investigating Jeffrey Epstein-related cases until last December, when she was let go days after suing J.P. Morgan Chase about alleged Epstein abuse.
Maureen Comey, daughter of former FBI Director James Comey, has just been fired from her job as federal prosecutor in Manhattan, a position she's held for nearly a decade. Maureen Comey is known for prosecuting someone you might have heard of, that guy, Jeffrey Epstein, and someone else that you might have heard of, Ghislaine Maxwell, seen here.
Like Maureen Comey, who figuratively should know where all the bones are buried. She was part of the second Epstein indictment, investigation, and prosecution. She was also fired suspiciously as the pressure to release the files on Epstein increased in July. But Maureen Comey was also lead prosecutor of a much more recent accused, charged, and prosecuted predator, former billionaire, and now millionaire. If you guessed Puff, Diddy, Daddy, Love Combs, you're right. And this case, just like Epstein's, did not receive anything close to what she wanted and asked for in time when she argued in front of Judge Arun. Judge Arun, who also happens to be connected to the Epstein legal saga. We'll review Judge Arun's opinions and orders at a better time, which is also why you need to hit that subscribe button and notifications so you don't miss a thing. But before I play this clip, I want you to ask yourself whether you truly believe the Epstein Trafficking Enterprise ended with his death. The world is watching, and we see what is going on in Chicago, Portland, Memphis, Washington, LA, and Charlie Kirk, as they all become collateral damage in protecting the real big lie. Could it be that the present day cover-up is less about protecting Trump's name and involvement with Epstein in the 90s? Or is it more about protecting a pedo trafficking ring that is potentially still going on and growing strong today? Please leave your comments below as we look at the evidence and put our critical thinking caps on. I want to hear your theories. I personally believe the hiding of the Epstein files is just a pressure test, like many other things I've seen this current administration do. They want to see how much and if they can truly control the American media, information, and ultimately the people.
When Inside Edition producer Will Evans tried to speak to the workers, they didn't have anything to say.
We're just curious what's going on with the island. Are you guys doing renovations, upkeep? What's going on?
This patrol boat started tailing us.
They started following us when we left, and they really don't seem to want us around.
Epstein Island. This boat captain, Guy Dom, ferried Epstein to and from the island.
There was a time I took Jeffrey Epstein's party of 4 out here to the island. And it's basically a woman about his age and a couple of girls that looked like they were 13, 14, maybe 15 years old, sisters. And it dawned on me, if those aren't his kids, maybe those were victims. The longer I think about it, the more I realize I probably helped him commit a crime.
The island is now owned by a billionaire investor who bought it 2 years ago for $60 million. He reportedly plans to turn it into a luxury 25-room resort, which explains the presence of all those workers.
In this press release, Denise George, while she was still able to act in good faith representing the USVI government, alleged that Epstein anchored a criminal enterprise, the Epstein Enterprise, through which many, many young girls and women were trafficked, raped, and assaulted while being held captive in the secluded private island of Little St. James, aka Epstein Island. Daren Indyke and Richard D. Kahn were added as individual defendants because of information Denise George and the Attorney General's office obtained despite their refusal to cooperate. Now, this information revealed their involvement as captains of Epstein's criminal enterprise, including their direct participation in virtually all of the business operations and financial activities of Epstein's trafficking network, such as facilitating forced marriages between victims for immigration purposes. The Epstein Enterprise defendants use deception, fraud, coercion to entice these vulnerable girls and lure them, some as young as 11, into human trafficking. And how would they do it? They would go and promise their families that it would help them pay for school, for healthcare, or other financial needs. With the help of these two bozos, Epstein built a number of shell corporations and LLCs, some of the ones mentioned and many, many more, to hide, conceal, and fund his trafficking sickness. And now you may be asking, how was he able to use them to conceal it? That is by registering them as non-profitable charities, not only receiving hundreds of thousands in illegal tax exemptions, but using the charities accounts as vehicles to pay off the victims, even having some of the victims claimed as employees in their numerous LLCs. For example, Plan D LLC, Hyperon Air, Freedom Air Petroleum, and Jag LLC had the manager and member listed as Epstein's own private pilot, Larry Viscosi. But financial reports showed it was really Epstein who was the principal behind them. Now, these entities owned the helicopters and private planes used by Epstein to traffic and transport young girls. Plan D owned the Gulfstream N212JE, whose flight logs many have been trying to get their hands on, which I do have my hands on, and will show Epstein transporting underage girls, celebrities, politicians, and victims to the island. Now, Hyperon Air LLC, on the other hand, owned the Keystone helicopter N722JE. Numerous flights were booked under Plan D LLC from the mainland of St. Thomas to the two islands with Epstein and underage girls. Numerous other LLCs and corporations, the majority, listed Jeffrey Epstein as president, and the other two, Daren Indyke and Richard Kahn, proud fathers of daughters, volunteers in their communities with various charities, along listed as either administrators or secretaries or treasurer. Now, Nautilus Inc. owned Little James Island, aka Epstein Island. Great St. Jim LLC owned Great St. James Island. Now, for those wondering what the heck Great St. James Island is, well, that's the second island Epstein bought, which the government of USVI believed, and honestly, so do I, was only purchased to get more privacy and keep them secluded so they could continue their bull. Other businesses and entities with similar organizational structures, Jeffrey Richard Indyke Kahn, whatever, is Poplar Inc., which was incorporated in 2011 to conduct the transactions of Great St. Jim LLC. We have Laurel, Maple, and Cypress Inc., which used to conceal his ownership of the New York and New Mexico properties. Then we get to the Trusts, 1953, and Southern Trust Company. The 1953 Trust, which was created and amended 2 days before Jeffrey Epstein was found dead in his cell, giving Indyke and Kahn with control of over $577 million, as they reported, both of them, in the petition for probate letters. Now, in April 2020, about 8 months after Epstein's death, $13 million was wired out of the Butterfly Trust, was wired into the Butterfly Trust from the 1953 Trust, following the liquidation of a bunch of other Epstein investment funds. Okay? Now, several months later, even more money was transferred to 2 more companies, which had Indyke Kahn and their spouses as the heads and benefited from. And then we look at Southern Trust Company, Inc., which was involved in fraudulently obtaining more than $80 million in fraudulent tax benefits. Indyke was the company's secretary, Kahn, the treasurer. Now, Southern Trust claimed to be an informatics company that was creating sophisticated financial and DNA mining algorithms. No idea what a DNA algorithm is. But this is where the third executor's expertise comes in, and that is Boris Nikolic. One Serbian fashion designer, great buddies with Bill Gates, turned World Economic Forum member and physician and managing director of Biomedics Capital, seemingly overnight. We'll get to know more about Boris through the victim testimonies in the next episode. Victim voices. Again, guys, I tell you, make sure you subscribe, because this shit just keeps getting wilder and crazier. Now that we know a little bit about the enterprise, let's pivot to the factual allegations of this case. Epstein, the head perv in charge, created a network of companies and individuals who were willing to participate in, facilitate, and conceal his trafficking of underage girls to the Virgin Islands, holding them captive, abusing them physically, mentally, and emotionally. I just learned a new word, And that word is gorilla pimping. While I was watching BJ Investigates Soft White Underbelly Nova series while trying to figure out how to do this whole YouTube thing. And let me tell you, these wealthy billionaires were gorilla pimping. Epstein simply moved his operation from Miami to Virgin Islands and made it more ruthless. These morally depraved individuals did not do this just for the money. Oh, no. According to the USVI hero, former Attorney General Denise George, allegedly, Epstein's little association, in fact, including the multiple defendants and others, were willing to participate in, facilitate, and conceal Epstein's criminal activity in exchange for financial and other benefits, including sexual services and forced labor from the victims. In the victims' voices is going to be the next chapter of this investigation. And that's when we really examine all the allegations as per court documents, lawsuits, depositions, and settlements to really know what happened on Epstein Island. We're going to hear the story of an autistic 16-year-old girl who was brutally assaulted by someone we all know who's been connected to Epstein but was never charged. A family harassed. And we're going to hear about the many, many ways victims were silenced. But for now, we'll just stick to the details outlined in this specific case so we can stay organized.